Rod Rourke, welcome back to Rourke Knows Podcast. Well, let's talk about a really hot topic in fillers and in plastic surgery is, do fillers really resorb, especially the hyaluronic acid fillers? For years, we've been told that fillers are biodegradable, especially the hyaluronic acid fillers. Well, those of us who've used fillers for a long time and who've done many of these trials know that that's not necessarily true. Hyaluronic acid fillers, they break down, but they don't necessarily are all biodegradable. So in fact, this was, I think, a great TikTok and a reaction from a influencer that on TikTok, and I'm going to show it to you and I'll give you my reaction to what she found that she thought was astounding, and yet I think it's quite commonly known, in, at least in my area, in plastic surgery. So let's roll this.
MRIs that are now going viral on social media show that this filler actually never goes away. It just migrates, and in many cases, it expands. This information just hit TikTok, and the response has been wild. The video that started this conversation on TikTok was from a doctor who took one of these MRIs and decided to talk people through it.
So what you're looking at here is an MRI image of a 33-year-old patient who had over 12 cc, which is 12 syringes of hyaluronic acid filler injected to her face over the past 6 years. We measured the amount of filler, the amount of volume that was there. It ended up being close to 28 cc.
She has 28 syringes of filler in her face because it never actually dissolves.
And what this shows us is that hyaluronic acid fillers are hydrophilic. That means they love water, and they also cause tissue expansion.
So for many women, like me, I had no idea that it actually never went away. Somebody commented and said, when it first came out, all injectors said that it would only last 6 months. And the guy responded and said, that's what the filler companies were telling us. That is what they were telling doctors. I mean, like, what is it with the medical industry that somehow is apparently just, exempt from all regulations, exempt from actually being honest about what they're putting into our bodies? And this video alone got over 9 million views, and it obviously sparked a huge...
The influencer says some really good things, but what she is misleading is that these are FDA trials, and they say that's the longevity of fillers that are noticeable. In other words, when they do a trial, they say, when is it noticeable? When is it back to what is called baseline? So that doesn't mean that it's all gone. In fact, many times they may be back to what they look like or close to what they look like, but they still can have fillers in place. So in essence, I'm not defending the FDA or the clinical trials, but it's really, they didn't say that they're gone, they just were not noticeable as they were to pre-op. So let's roll the rest of it because it's kind of interesting and entertaining.
It obviously sparked a huge conversation. This has now been popping up everywhere on the app. And slowly, women started to realize that this information actually had been out there. It just hadn't been communicated to them by their own doctors. Another big topic of conversation under this umbrella has been pillow face. And if you don't know what that is, think Chrissy Teigen as of recently, big puffed up cheeks, or Kylie Jenner at the Met Gala where everybody was saying that she looked like she was 40 years old. Their faces basically look like they've been blown up by a balloon. That is pillow face. And that is all because the filler has not dissolved. And a lot of people assume that it was just because they got too much filler and it was like fresh and it hadn't settled. But it's actually because they did get a lot at one point. It never dissolved. It migrated, it expanded, and then they got more to compensate for it migrating and expanding.
So we now have an explanation of the pillow face phenomenon, which is that filler does not just dissolve.
That's so, oh my God, it's so sad.
Metabolize over time. It in fact migrates or spreads to other areas of your face and continues to cause tissue expansion. And so the people who...
Well, let's talk about the pillow face. And I think this is partially true. People keep adding fillers and fillers because the timeline was, oh, you need to come back in a year, and then you just keep adding fillers. The key is for the injector to say no. And that's the big problem because they keep pounding in more fillers when most of the time they don't need more fillers. And that's what results in the pillow face. So it's just doing excessive amount of filling in a short period of time, which is a year or 2 years. So it's not that it migrates, they just keep putting fillers in after fillers and more and more. So that really is accountable to primarily the injector and then secondarily to the injectee. And the way I prevent that in my practice is that I just refuse to do fillers if I don't think it's indicated, or if there's any indication that it's overdone. I'll recommend that they melt it, because many times I see my patients and they go elsewhere, especially for lip fillers, it looks bad. Because lip fillers and cheek fillers, when they're overdone, look bad, and they actually make you look different and weird and actually older than you are. So this is a very good clip, so know before you go, and definitely hyaluronic acid fillers, the take-home points are, they don't all biodegrade. They last a lot longer than a year. So go to a wise and prudent and ethical injector that will say no. And if you've had too much filler, you can melt it out, but not all the way, because some of it is integrated into your tissue, especially if you've had a lot of filler. So you really need to back off on the filler hype and more onto looking natural. And that's why the new ways of biostimulation is so important, and getting away from a lot of the filler mania is so critical. So please give me your thoughts, give me your comments. Know before you go, and stay safe out there.